You all look very serious. So today, let me begin by asking you a simple question. Have you ever had a small stone get inside your shoe while walking? Maybe not very often here because the roads are good here. The walking paths are clean and smooth. But I must tell you, since I come from India and worked in remote villages as missionary priest, I have experienced this many times. You're walking happily, everything looks fine. The road may even be smooth, but suddenly a tiny stone slips into your shoe. It is so small you can't even see it properly. Yet every step becomes painful. You cannot walk peacefully. You cannot enjoy the journey. Even if someone offers you a beautiful car ride, the little stone keeps disturbing you until you stop, remove the shoe, and take it out. Such a small thing, but it can disturb the whole journey. Dear friends, in the same way, when our hearts become hard like stone, our journey toward holiness becomes difficult, even if everything else looks perfect. We may have beautiful churches, good liturgy, regular prayers, fasting, rosaries, novenas, but if the heart becomes hard, every step in spiritual life becomes heavy. The gospel we heard today from the Sermon on the Mount, in fact, helps us to soften our hearts. It sounds very serious. Jesus speaks strongly about anger, lust, divorce, oaths. It almost feels stricter than the Old Testament. But we must understand the context. In Jesus' time, the scribes were experts in the law of Moses. They studied it day and night. The Pharisees were deeply religious people. They were not careless sinners. They were devout, disciplined, and prayerful people. They fasted twice a week. They gave tithes. They strictly observed Sabbath laws. They created detailed rules to make sure not even the smallest commandment was broken. But slowly, something happened. The law, which was originally a loving gift from God to guide his people, became a system of control. The focus shifted from the heart to external performances. Religion became more about correct behavior than about compassion, more about being right than being loving. And that is why Jesus says, I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Fulfill means to bring to completion. And what is the completion of the law? Law. We just celebrated Valentine's Day. I had a good time last evening with some of you dancing, so I don't want to speak about law. But in the first reading, Sirach tells us, if you choose, you can keep the commandments. God places before us life and death. He respects our freedom. The commandments are not burdens. They are guides to life. But Jesus goes deeper. He says, you have heard it said, but I say to you, you shall not kill. That is the external act. But Jesus says, do not even allow anger to grow in your heart. You shall not commit adultery. But Jesus says, purify even your thoughts. Here, Jesus is not increasing the burdens. He is removing the stone from the shoe. Jesus is addressing the root because anger, jealousy, lust, pride, these are the small stones inside the heart. If they remain there, even the most religious life becomes uncomfortable. We may follow every ritual, every tradition, every prayer, but the heart is restless. Sometimes we can become like the Pharisees without realizing it. We can be very faithful in prayer, very regular at Mass, very disciplined in fasting, and slowly a small stone enters the heart. Judgment. Suppose the attitude of judging others. We begin to think, I am more serious than others. She is not prayerful. They are not good Catholics. Friends, the Pharisees loved God very much, but their attitude sometimes became rigid and harsh. They defended the law, but forgot mercy. They protected tradition, but sometimes wounded people. Jesus questioned them not because they were religious, but because their religion lacked tenderness. Holiness is not about being stricter than others. Holiness is about having a softer heart. St. Paul, in today's second reading, speaks about the wisdom of God. A wisdom not understood by the rulers of this age. That wisdom is the cross. On the cross, Jesus fulfilled the law. And what did he do there? He forgave, he loved, he showed mercy. That is fulfillment as the completion of the law. Dear friends, we are now in the 6th Sunday in ordinary time. This week is the Ash Wednesday, and we enter into the Lenten season. Lent is not a competition of who can fast more strictly. It is not about showing how disciplined we are. It is about removing the stones from our hearts. Maybe the stone is resentment we have carried for years. Maybe it is pride. Maybe it is an unwillingness to forgive. Maybe it is a rigid mindset. This is how it must always be. If the heart is hard like stone, even the beautiful traditions feel heavy. Even prayer feels dry. Even worship feels mechanical. But when the heart becomes soft, everything becomes lighter. Dear friends, Jesus' strong words today are not meant to frighten us. They are meant to soften us. He is saying, do not stop at external goodness. Let your heart change. He calls us to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, not by doing more rituals, but by loving more deeply, by accepting others, by being patient, by reconciling quickly, by refusing to let anger settle. As we prepare for Lent, maybe we should ask ourselves gently, is there a small stone in my heart? Is there someone I have refused to forgive? Am I rigid where I should be compassionate? Am I judging where I should be understanding? As dear friends, The journey to holiness is not meant to be painful. God has given us good roads, the sacraments, the church, the commandments. But if the heart is hardened, even the smoothest road feels difficult. Today, Jesus invites us to pause, remove the stone, soften the heart, and walk freely again. Because the law fulfilled is love. The commandment completed is mercy. The tradition perfected is compassion. And when the heart is soft, the journey becomes joyful, and that is the good news. Amen.